Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Run a Successful Business and Still Have a Life. My name is Stacey Morgan and today's episode is brought to you by my one-on-one coaching program, Simply You and I. Until April 30th, you can purchase 2 personalized business coaching sessions with me for $297 each, and you'll receive the 3rd session with me for free. That's 3 hours of business coaching uniquely tailored to your needs, the needs of you, your family, your business, whatever you want to talk about. Register now at simplystaceymorgan.com/coaching. Well, I hope you're having a really good day. I am absolutely up to my eyeballs in to-do lists and things that need doing. And I'm sure you're exactly the same. But all at the same time, I'm trying my very best to be the best mum that I can. And some days I'm doing well and some days not so much. I've just come from spending a good deal of time, in fact, over 30 minutes on the floor with Lucinda playing Lego. And the reason that that's worth mentioning is because I hate Lego. I can't stand it. I'm just not patient enough, I guess. And I like to play with things. I like to make things and have it at the end. I want to play with it. So getting to the finish line for me is where I want to get to. So taking the time to connect with my kids and lay on the floor and play Lego patiently while I watch them make mistakes and then, watch them fix those mistakes and all of those lovely life lessons that you get from playing Lego is always challenging for me. And so I've, been making a conscious effort in the last little while. I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, at connecting with the kids at the things that they're obsessed with. So before I played Lego with Lucinda, I was watching YouTube clips with Patrick of big planes taking off. And that's his thing at the moment. He's so obsessed with planes. Ever since we went overseas, he's just been, he can't get enough of it. And watching YouTube clip after YouTube clip of gigantic planes like coming out onto the runway, slowly taxiing to the end of the runway, turning around and then going up into the sky. It's like, he loves it. He absolutely loves it. So taking that time to spend with them has been really, really important. But in saying that, taking time with them has to fit into the schedule of all the other things that I'm juggling at the same time. And I'm sure you're exactly the same. And for a really long time, any time that I wasn't watching the planes or doing Lego or whatever they were obsessed with at the time, I was feeling really guilty that I wasn't, being a good mum. I'm saying that with inverted commas. I wasn't spending the time that I should have been with them. But, any time that wasn't spent connecting with them was wasted. And it took me a really long time to actually figure out that, yes, I do need to connect with them and spend that time with them, but actually I do also need time to myself. That's how I recharge. I may come across as a people person and bright and bubbly and with lots of energy, but I don't recharge by doing that. I recharge by retreating and having time to myself. So finding that time to myself has been so important in me learning about myself and the way that I can bring myself to the world as the best leader that I can, and importantly, the best mum that I can. So whilst I'm, sharing the load between watching the YouTube clips and playing the Lego and, investing in all of that, I'm also spending time, getting to know what works for me and what recharges me and what that is for myself. And I really feel like a lot of mums struggle with that. They struggle with the concept of taking time out for themselves, and heaven forbid putting themselves first when we are taught for so long to put everybody before us, right? Does that sound familiar? It makes me think of Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which is a fabulous book. If you haven't read it already, I encourage you to. I'll read you this passage from page 128 in Untamed. Mothers have martyred themselves in their children's names since the beginning of time. We have lived as if she who disappears the most loves the most. We have been conditioned to prove our love by slowly ceasing to exist. What a terrible burden for our children to bear, to know that they are the reason their mother stopped living. What a terrible burden for our daughters to bear, to know that if they choose to become mothers, this will be their fate too. Because if we show them that being a martyr is the highest form of love, that is what they will become. They will feel obliged to love as well as their mothers did after all. They will believe they have permission to live only as fully as their mothers allowed them to live. And I think about that when I, make choices to kind of step away and fill my own cup up and look after myself, and maybe, take a bubble bath or a long shower or just have 5 minutes to myself, I have to kind of reframe that mindset of like, oh, well, I've left the Lego game and I'm, taking that time aside to myself, or what a terrible mother I am. I have to reframe that and think, no, what the example I'm setting for Lucinda is that I'm happy to learn about myself. I'm happy to know what works for me. And I'm happy to actually put myself first in those moments and take that time to myself. Because that's the message I want her to have. I want her to know that she has the tools to be able to figure out what works for her in terms of regulating her own emotions, in terms of filling up her own cup, in terms of, protecting her energy. And that when she needs to put herself first to get that recharge and to have those moments, then she can. And I didn't do that for a very long time. And it wasn't necessarily all about what I thought I should be doing, but there was a little bit of that in it. And I think we do that a little bit too much as mums. And so I want you to think about today, because this is what I've been thinking about, that what message are you sending your kids? Glennon Doyle in Untamed, the byline is stop pleasing, start living. She talks a lot about having kids doesn't mean you necessarily have to stop being you and stop enjoying the things that you enjoy and put everybody before you. That may have been role modeled to us in the past, but it doesn't have to be how it is now. And so I want you to think about your own life and your own moments. And are there times where you can hear that little voice in the back of your mind saying to you, well, you probably should just go back to the Lego, or you probably shouldn't, take that moment to have that cup of tea because, you need to clean the kitchen up, or, that bag needs packing for tomorrow, or the lunches need to be made, things like that. And I want you to think about what kind of message that sends to your kids, and think about, the future planning for your children for when they have their own families and they start making choices like that. Because I think we have the opportunity to have a really big impact on our kids and the messages that we send them. And if we continue to put everybody ahead of us, that's not necessarily the role modeling that we want to be doing. And, we do that in our business as well, not just in our family life and when it comes to motherhood. If we put everyone else before us, then it makes it really, really hard for us to do our job and to run our business on the long term. And I've told this story before, but one year I said to Heath, oh gosh, I can't believe I have to teach on Tuesdays. I was hoping to have Tuesdays off. And he said, wouldn't it be great if you knew who the person that wrote the schedule, and then you could ask for Tuesdays off? And it was like this sarcastic comment that I was like, oh, that's right, I write the schedule. I could have given myself Tuesday off, but I just didn't. And that was because I thought, I better be working twice as hard as everybody else. I better be in the building twice as much as everybody else. That old saying of first to arrive and last to leave. And I realized that wasn't the kind of leader that I wanted to be. I wanted to role model for my team. Yes, I've decided Tuesday nights are going to be the night I have dinner with my kids and I put them to bed and I do their stories and help them clean their teeth and do all of that. And that's important to me, and that's okay. So I want you to think about where this martyr mentality, this role modeling that's been done for us, where those patterns are for you in your life, whether it is when you're at home or whether it is when you're at work. And I want you to make a little pledge to yourself to be putting yourself first. It doesn't have to be in every single scenario. I'm not saying don't play any Lego and don't watch any YouTube, and absolutely just, go and sit on a tropical island and have that moment for yourself for, 5 weeks. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying there are these little micro moments during your day where you can choose you. And if you're waiting for permission to choose you, then here it is. You absolutely have it. You have it from the universe, and you have it from me, and you probably have it from the people that are surrounding you as well. Because if you actually went ahead and asked them, they would probably say, yes, I would support that 100%. I would support you taking that time for yourself. And we sometimes don't think about that. So take a moment in the next week or two to have a think about those little inner dialogues that are going on in the back of your mind. Have a think about the choices that you're making when you perhaps don't put yourself first. Perhaps the choices when you put the rest of your team through professional development opportunities, but then you don't say yes to yourself having a professional development opportunity. And, that goes for business coaching as well. I have so many people that say to me, yes, I'd love to do business coaching with you, but I'm just not ready because my business is not there yet. And I kind of think that's the exact reason you should have a business coach. And I think what it is instead, I mean, that's the excuse they use on the outside, but I think the excuse on the inside is, I couldn't possibly put myself first. I couldn't possibly choose me. And I think you can, not just in the business coaching sense, but in the sense of all the ways in which you can choose you in motherhood and in your business. So I want you to choose you this week. I want you to have a moment where you actually hear that in a dialogue and you go, no, shush, I'm going to take this. This one's going to be for me. What do you reckon? I hope you're not cringing. I hope you're not thinking, that can't be me. Because I think it can. I absolutely think it can. And if you're having trouble flipping that mindset, think about what role modeling you're doing for your kids and what they will then be struggling with when they have their own families, what work they're going to have to undo that we set up for them, because, all of our kids are going to be in therapy at some point. We can't avoid that. But at least you want to make sure that when your kids it's not over, being able to put themselves first. You hope that they want to be able to see you doing that and then take that example. Don't you just love it when airplanes are flying completely over the top of my podcast recording? Speaking of airplanes, more airplanes in my life. That's exactly what I need. Today's episode of How to Run a Successful Business and Still Have a Life is brought to you by my one-on-one coaching program, Simply You and I. Until April 30th, you can purchase 2 personalized business coaching sessions with me for $297 each, and you'll receive the 3rd session for free. That's 3 hours of business coaching uniquely tailored to your needs. That's you choosing you and having 3 hours to yourself to help yourself grow and help your business grow as well. You can register now at simplystacymorgan.com/coaching. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you haven't left us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, please do. We would absolutely love that. It helps us share the podcast with a bigger audience, and that's always good, especially as we're heading towards our 1 year milestone for the podcast. That's really important. And thanks to those of you who have already left a rating or review. If you haven't yet, please jump on. I appreciate you listening and taking the time to put me in your earbuds, and I will talk to you next week.